It all starts with a guy at a bar, talking about a famous triple S rank dungeon considered unbeatable. His friend then asks if there is still anyone who has not heard of that place. Its fame is so great that several legendary and high-level players have already tried to clear the area, but all have failed. The main rumor says that on the deepest level, the strongest being of the present day resides as the boss of the place. Outside, a group looks at the immense gates, mentioning that even the hero team is inside, but that victory is impossible. Looking at the system information, one of them gets upset and points out that the difficulty is way higher than the rumors suggested. A red error panel blocks access, warning that the minimum level to enter is 999. Inside, the hero team panics, and the leader orders everyone to fall back immediately, claiming that no one is going to clear that. At that moment, a horned boss notices that the group did not meet the requirements and decided to leave. Surrounded by several dangerous monsters, the area boss guarantees that even if they tried the challenge, they would have to get through them first. Being called by his subordinates, the boss states with determination that they will not let anyone reach their master. The true boss thanks everyone for their effort, reflecting on the irony of that dungeon. This is the MC Tensasha, who is the level 1 boss being protected by triple S rank monsters in the Twilight Tower. Walking through the night streets, he thinks about how 21st century society is an unbalanced garbage game. In this modern world, life is ranked into castes, where those at the top are revered and those at the bottom are humiliated. The difficulty of climbing the ranks in this social system is something that borders on insane mode. The young man crosses the street thinking that it would be possible to survive if he simply accepted his place at the bottom of the pyramid. Imamura Hitoya vents that he cannot see himself happy stuck in this routine forever. He sighs out of exhaustion from the situation until a very bright light suddenly catches his attention. With no time to react, a huge truck speeds right at him on the crosswalk. After completely losing consciousness, he wakes up in a dark place surrounded by a green light, not understanding where he ended up. As soon as he looks down, the young man notices something very strange about his own hand. Shock takes over when he realizes that his fingers are now just bones glowing with blue energy. Touching his own face in despair, Imamura discovers that the change was not limited only to his arms. His entire body has been transformed into a skeleton, and a system panel appears classifying him as a level 5 undead. Very confused by the floating screens, the guy questions if he ended up inside a video game. Soon the memory of the accident resurfaces, remembering perfectly having been run over before waking up there. A new warning appears in the air, informing that the location is the F-rank dungeon called Forest Mausoleum. In the middle of this existential crisis, a faint and cute sound echoes near his feet. The skeleton quickly turns around, totally surprised by the unexpected noise. A little creature with light fur appears, being identified by the system as a level 1 wolf. Sitting on the dirt floor, Imamura points at the animal, barely able to believe that it is actually a wolf. Still apprehensive about his new form, he nervously asks if the pup intends to devour him. Ignoring caution, the little animal happily jumps straight into the skeleton's lap, taking him by surprise. The little wolf settles down in an instant, rubbing its face against the guy's bones looking for affection. Seeing the docile reaction, Imamura relaxes his shoulders and concludes that the little beast is harmless. But the tranquility is suddenly broken when he feels an aggressive shift in the environment. A strong breeze shakes the huge tree he is resting under, making dozens of leaves fall around him. Admiring the peaceful landscape, the MC reflects that this unusual place might not be so bad after all. Suddenly, the little wolf's ears perk up, catching a hostile sound coming from afar. A red alert flashes aggressively in the air, warning that a dungeon challenger has just been detected. The undead stares at the warning screen, completely lost about what it means to have a challenger there. In his lap, the pup begins to tremble and whimper, showing an instinctive dread that alerts the MC. Among the trees, a crossbow is loaded while an intruder celebrates finding his prey so early. Hearing the voice loaded with hostile intent, Imamura turns his frightened face looking for the shooter. Without warning, an arrow cuts through the air and directly strikes the side of Imamura's head, who barely processes the attack. The heavy impact shatters his head immediately, scattering bone fragments. The little pup panics, crying as it sees its new friend falling without defense. The skeletal body collapses on the grass, struck by the projectile and completely still. Darkness takes over the MC's mind, leaving him in an empty void. Heavy footsteps break the silence, and a boot steps firmly next to his remains. A muscular adventurer with a bow approaches calmly, celebrating how easy it is to collect materials that day. With his consciousness flickering, the young man wonders what is happening to him. The traumatic memory of his past life emerges in his clouded mind, fearing that this will be his end. Even in the darkness, he manages to hear the sad cries of the abandoned little animal beside him. In the blink of an eye, the skeleton wakes up with a jump, holding his intact head, shocked that he is still functioning. Checking his own hands, he realizes that he respawned and concludes that his curse as an undead is very real. Seeking comfort and a way to relieve the tension, the guy pets the little wolf, being certain of his own momentary defeat. However, cruel memories of that short blackout powerfully invade his mind. He was forced to passively watch the adventurer extract the small fangs from the defenseless pup. The hunter's ruthless tool also came down without hesitation to harvest from the little creature. With a blade stained from the fresh hunt, the intruders continued their dirty work of taking things apart. The proud hunter raised what he extracted from the wolf as if it were just a simple trophy. Right after, a greedy hand advanced toward the skeleton's remains, focused on the valuable bones. In a rough and painful movement, the adventurer forcefully removed the ribs from Imamura's chest without the slightest care. Back to reality, the MC stares at his own trembling chest intensely, feeling the phantom memory of that extreme pain. The nightmare restarts instantly when the red system alert flashes detecting new intruders. Dread takes over Imamura, who panics realizing that more humans have already arrived in the area to farm. Knowing very well that he will be taken apart if he stays still, he decides that he needs to get out of their sight right away. Noticing the new danger, the pup beside him cowers on the ground, paralyzed by fear. Wasting no time, the skeleton hurriedly grabs the little wolf and warns that they are going to escape together. With a clumsy jump, the MC throws himself behind a large trunk, hoping not to be seen. Two new adventurers appear walking arrogantly through the clearing, grumbling that clearing that place is a joke. The duo continues complaining about the system, annoyed that they always end up facing reincarnated trash from another world. Hiding behind the wood, Imamura peeks at the newcomers, completely perplexed by the mention of people from another world. Walking through the dungeon, one of the adventurers comments that the place is full of monsters that yield ingredients to boost energy. The partner cheerfully agrees, planning to beat up some weak monsters to relax before enjoying the night in the red light district. Giving a smug laugh, he states that there is no way he will ever stop these daily farm runs. Hidden and terrified, Imamura finally understands that he ended up in a different world, just like in the comics, but finds it weird he did not become an overpowered hero. Looking at his own skeletal body, the guy laments having reincarnated as a useless monster that only serves for others to farm items. He realizes that the adventurers who invade the place are like cruel predators relentlessly farming anything in their path. Furthermore, the punishing system forces the monsters to respawn every time they are taken down in the area. Trembling with despair while holding the pup, the MC concludes that he is trapped in an infinite loop of pain and suffering. In the middle of this silent panic, he quickly notices a strange movement nearby. Acting on pure instinct, the skeleton throws himself to the side, protecting the little wolf, understanding that the little animal has already suffered too much in that place. A second later, the adventurer's heavy blade destroys the trunk where they were hiding, taking the MC by surprise. Giving no break, a swift arrow cuts through the air and strikes the ground just inches away from the frightened pup. Running desperately away, Imamura cannot understand how those hunters managed to discover their hiding spot so fast. Watching the scene from afar, the archer lowers his weapon for a moment, completely confused by what he just saw. He asks his partner if that thing running away from them through the field is really an undead. Ignoring the strangeness of the situation, the shooter coldly pulls the bowstring, ensuring the beast will meet its end anyway if hit. Several glowing projectiles are fired in sequence, tearing through the air directly toward the fugitive's back. Seeing defeat approaching again, the skeleton goes into total panic, fearing having to go through that suffering one more time. Unable to dodge in time, the shots heavily strike the guy's back, bringing him down to the ground with the impact. Hearing the noise of the attack, the little wolf turns its frightened face, seeing its only protector fall incapacitated. The undead's fragile body is left stretched out and pinned to the grass, totally disabled by the projectiles. Fallen on the dirt and feeling immense pain, Imamura lets out a faint groan while trying to stay conscious. Gathering all his strength, he rests his trembling arms on the ground and tries to get up slowly to protect the pup. However, a new relentless rain of arrows comes down from the skies, hitting him directly and crushing any chance of escape. The two adventurers calmly walk up to the down body, mocking how that low-rank dungeon is such an easy joke. The archer stops next to the skeleton's remains and decides to start the collection work right there. At that moment, the swordsman steps forward with a nasty look, warning that they will start by taking the little animal apart first. Without an ounce of remorse, the hunter raises his sharp tool in the air, ready to harvest from the defenseless prey. But the action is interrupted when the shooter feels a tug on his heel and looks down, seeing the MC's bony hand holding his boot. With his skull glowing in an intense blue light, Imamura warns with pure rage that he will not allow them to touch the wolf. A powerful energy begins to emanate from the MC's chest as he reflects on the cowardice of those humans. Filled with anger over the situation, the young man promises himself that he will become a challenge that no one will ever be able to overcome. A system screen suddenly appears announcing that a secret mission has been activated and the dungeon boss has just manifested. In his mind, he remembers his past life where he always believed that ordinary people did not matter and certain realities were unchangeable. Rejecting this defeatist thought, the skeleton glows brightly, wishing with all his might to change himself and his own destiny. Faced with that absurd explosion of energy, the two intruders step back intimidated and cover their eyes because of the sudden flash. The system issues a monstrous evolution alert while the MC feels a gigantic power flowing through his entire being. His previously exposed bones are now quickly covered by dark and elegant armor, detailed with lines of blue light. Completing the transformation, his face goes back to having human features, showing short dark hair and a glowing cold look. Totally shocked by the change, the swordsman asks his partner how a simple undead managed to evolve and get a face like that. The shooter soon recovers his arrogance and remembers that the place is low level, stating that evolved trash is still trash. Prepping their weapons to attack, the duo decides to fill the new creature with arrows before slicing up the pup as they had planned. Giving them no time to breathe, Imamura charges at top speed in the blink of an eye, focused only on eliminating the threats. The speed of the movement is so absurd that the hunter completely loses sight of the target, thinking he vanished into thin air. In that exact instant, the guy appears right above the swordsman, preparing a devastating strike with his newly formed tail. With a relentless motion, the MC delivers a brutal hit that sends the adventurer flying, making him take a heavy hit from the impact. Fallen on the dirt, the mercenary tries to process what hit him, totally disoriented by the immense force of the attack. Checking his gear, he lets out an annoyed curse upon realizing that his combat blade was completely destroyed. A sharp piece of the broken weapon spins in the air until it falls uselessly onto the grass. Taking advantage of the enemy's shock, the newly evolved guy takes an imposing stance, staring the human up and down. The expression on Imamura's face is pure emptiness, showing that he has not the slightest intention of showing mercy to the intruders. Trembling nervously, the swordsman despairs as he realizes that the creature broke his solid steel sword, using only its tail. Seeing his companion humiliated on the ground, the shooter calls the MC trash and pulls the bowstring to the max to take him out. With a nasty and annoyed look, he lets go of the weapon and fires the lethal projectile toward the target. The downed warrior turns his face toward his partner, hoping the strike manages to turn that disastrous situation around. A barrage of arrows tears through the air at high speed while the shooter yells for the monster to just shut up and go down. But the hunter's confidence vanishes in the same second when he notices the impossible result of the attack. The projectile directly hits Imamura's glowing chest and simply shatters into several pieces without leaving even a scratch. Terror takes over the archer when he reads the floating system screen, classifying their prey as the unknown level boss of the dungeon. With a threatening aura overflowing from his body, the MC coldly warns them to never dare come back to that place. The shooter turns around immediately and starts running for his life, certain that he will be completely crushed if he stays there. Imamura simply watches in silence as the intruders dash toward the immense gate, desperate in the face of the power difference. During the escape, the swordsman's eyes widen in panic as he hears the automatic alert warning that the exit is closing. Beside him, his partner freezes for a moment, feeling a chill down his spine at the terrible news. Looking ahead, the duo realizes with horror that the gigantic doors of the structure have already started coming together quickly. In a final effort not to get trapped, the warrior dives headfirst through the small gap that was still open. Right behind, the archer tries to squeeze through the same opening quickly, begging his colleague to wait for him. But the selfish mercenary is already far away on the other side, yelling that there is no way he is stopping halfway for anyone. Running out of time to pass, the shooter is heavily caught in the impact of the massive doors, letting out an agonizing yell down the corridor. The awful sound stops as soon as the stone structures lock completely, sealing the mausoleum for good. With the immediate end of the threat, the scary glow in the MC's eyes begins to fade away slowly. He looks down at his own body and sighs in relief, barely believing that he actually managed to drive those cruel hunters away. Not caring about his new look, the guy kneels gently on the grass to focus on the condition of his wounded little friend. A terrible anguish consumes him thinking about the possibility that the system might not bring the little animal back this time. Fortunately, the worries quickly disappear as the little down body on the earth begins to emit light, indicating that the respawn is already happening. The MC watches in awe, the intense light glowing right before his eyes. The mystical energy rises from the ground, revealing the silhouette of the little pup forming again in the middle of the clearing. Totally restored, the little animal lets out a happy bark, showing that the respawn was a success. The young man is extremely relieved to see that his friend is back, and catches the little wolf that jumps toward him. Hugging the little creature affectionately, Imamura thanks the heavens that this nightmare is finally over. But the peace does not last long because he suddenly notices a very bizarre detail on his own body. Shocked, the MC wonders where that tail came from and why on earth only his face has flesh now. While trying to process this physical transformation, a new blue system screen appears floating in the air. Reading the status information, he notices that he is now officially recognized by the rules of the place. The guy is left speechless upon discovering that he became the dungeon boss, questioning what is happening to himself. Far from there, in the hideout of the Ryusezoku clan, a henchman runs in yelling that a boss has just manifested in the F-ranked dungeon. The Thub Bodo explains that the undead evolved into something dangerous, stating they will need a dragon if they want to clear the area. Finding the desperation funny, the mercenary Gulden mocks his colleague, saying that failing in such a low-level place is a disgrace. A huge figure emerges from the shadows agreeing with the joke, calling the group useless for not being able to defeat the weakest monsters. Trembling with dread, the henchman stutters and tries to justify himself upon realizing that the clan boss himself showed up there. The leader intimidates the subordinate with his overwhelming presence, coldly calling him useless. In a rough move, the giant grabs the adventurer's head, asking why he kept going to that trash dungeon. Watching the scene with apprehension, Gulden gulps and just agrees with his superior statement. Without letting go of his victim, the leader orders them to exterminate all the wolves in the location and take the opportunity to test the two-headed baby dragon. With brutality, he tosses the henchman aside, guaranteeing that any low-level boss is nothing but scum and ordering them to wreck everything over there. Turning his back, the giant gives the final order for the team to move immediately. With a nasty look, Gulden stares at the caged creatures and warns that they are just his combat gear. Inside the bars, the monsters with glowing eyes growl softly, emanating a dangerous aura. Annoyed by the challenging stare, the mercenary kicks the iron bars hard to intimidate the animals. He makes it clear that useless tools in that cruel world end up being taken apart and sold for cold hard cash. Demanding absolute obedience, the redhead orders the beasts to prove their worth during that hunt if they want to stick around. Back at the forest mausoleum, the MC walks calmly, closely observing the interior of the dungeon for the first time. Admiring the ancient ruins covered by vegetation, Imamura calculates that the place is roughly the size of a large sports stadium. With the little wolf resting on his shoulder, he reflects in silence about the next step. The guy decides to push forward toward the darker area of the woods to investigate what exists in the depths. Upon advancing a little further into the unknown territory, he hears strange noises coming from the bushes. The surrounding environment seems just like a natural and peaceful forest, with no immediate signs of danger. Suspicious of the calm, the dungeon boss deduces that there must be more creatures inhabiting that space besides them. Right then, the pup lets out a bark and quickly jumps off his shoulders, drawing his attention. The evolved skeleton turns around on alert, asking his little companion if he found something hidden. His eyes widen slightly as he notices a suspicious movement in the bushes just ahead. The noise in the foliage quickly increases, making the guy tense with the approach of a possible enemy. To his absolute surprise, another pup identical to his little friend jumps happily out of the bush. He stands staring at the furry little animal, not understanding how another wolf appeared there out of nowhere. Suddenly, the sound of moving brush begins to echo from all sides of that clearing. Dozens of level 1 little wolves come running out of the shadows, completely surrounding the guy. Amazed by the cute invasion, Imamura goes into shock, realizing the absurd amount of pups present. While being surrounded by the excited pack, the MC thinks it is weird to call them wolves since they just look like harmless little pups. In the midst of that mess, he notices a peculiar glow coming from the background of the scenery. Curious, the young man walks toward the soft light to investigate what it is about. Getting closer, he comes across a huge wall covered in glowing blue mushrooms. Fascinated by the discovery, the young man comments that he had no idea that place housed luminous plants. A status screen appears floating over the structure, revealing that the fungi are also considered level 1 monsters. He crouches down to examine the plants closely, wondering if those motionless things really count as creatures. Reflecting on the collected information, he finally reaches an important conclusion about the dungeon. The guy compares the pathetic levels of both the glowing plants and the cute little animals. He notes with sadness that the wolf pack has exactly the same 0 strength as those vegetables. Walking back through the woods, Imamura notices that he only found dozens of pups and absolutely no other type of monster there. The fact definitively proves that the F-rank difficulty only houses completely weak and defenseless beings. Staring at the immense gates in the distance, he understands that the lack of a level restriction attracts hunters to the location. Cruel memories of adventurers harvesting bones and dismantling the innocent return to his mind to reinforce this reality. With the weight of the truth falling on his shoulders, the MC remains silent, processing the injustice of that world. To comfort the MC, one of the little wolves affectionately approaches and rubs its body against his leg. In the next instant, the entire pack happily rushes him, catching the guy off guard with so many jumps and barks. Submerged in love, he gets affectionate licks from the pups who just want his attention. The MC's face softens, feeling a genuine peace that he had not experienced in a long time. Sitting in the middle of the grass, and covered by the little animals, he whispers that the feeling of that affection is very comforting. He deeply regrets that those innocent little creatures are viewed only as collection materials by a greedy society. Filled with determination, the guy promises himself that he will do everything to protect every single one of those pups. The dungeon boss stands up carefully, fixing his posture as the wolves accompany him. Analyzing the security of the territory, he concludes that lingering near the entrance gates is an unnecessary risk. Decided to avoid trouble, Imamura calls the pack to retreat back to the dense area of the forest. While petting one of the little ones, the MC warns that they are going to hide in the deepest ruins of the mausoleum. He explains that if new intruders appear there, the wolves would be the first to take arrows and fall. However, before they could move away, a red light alarm flashes intensely behind the MC's back. Confused by the sudden glow, he turns his face and stares at the new alert message warning about intruders. Panic takes over Imamura as he realizes the terrible timing of the universe, outraged that challengers appeared right at that moment. The heavy stone gates forcefully begin to open, clearing the passage to the interior of the sanctuary. Wasting no time, a voice echoes from the entrance, ordering a monster to advance into the area flying. The MC quickly turns his body and widens his eyes, shocked by the winged creature that just invaded his domain. Flying over the location, 2 huge twin dragons appear, leaving Imamura shocked by the presence of those creatures. Right behind, the mercenary Gul'dan walks in laughing, commenting that the rumor about the dungeon boss was actually real. Seeing the human, the MC furiously realizes that the bad guys also came back. Giving no break, the intruder orders his beast to exterminate the target immediately. With the order given, the winged monster dives at top speed toward the MC. At that moment, the guy yells desperately for the wolves to run back into the forest. He barely manages to dodge the swooping attack of the flying creature. However, the pack remains frozen in fear in the same spot, huddled together near the danger. Tense with the situation, the dungeon boss wonders if he will really be able to protect all those pups alone. Despair takes over him, facing the overwhelming disadvantage. Dark memories of the past invade his mind, and he understands that the tragedy will repeat itself if he does nothing. Determined, Imamura concludes that he is the only one there capable of keeping those little animals safe. At that moment, one of the small wolves steps to the front of the group and barks bravely. Surprised, the MC turns his attention to the little pup. The little creature keeps growling at the intruders, showing that it will not back down. Inspired by their friend's courage, all the other little wolves also step forward and start barking together. The little leader of the pack maintains a firm stance against the giant invaders. This scene makes the MC remember when that very same little animal tried to protect him in the past. The pup remains relentless, willing to face any danger. Touched by the little one's loyalty, Imamura quietly says thanks for the support. Finding the situation funny, Gul'dan lets out a loud laugh and comments that the hunt gets way more fun this way. Emanating an intense blue energy, the MC warns that he will not let anyone lay a finger on the wolves. The mercenary just smiles in a nasty way, loving the opponent's resistance. Cold and cruel, the human orders his beast to prove their power, threatening to discard them if they are useless. Obeying the command, the blue dragon begins to gather freezing energy in its mouth. The dungeon system issues an alert informing that the creature's ability has been activated. Surprised by the message, the guy realizes that the enemy monster possesses a special technique. In an instant, the beast fires a massive blast of power straight at him. The MC throws himself to the side quickly, escaping the devastating beam by a hair. He stares at the impact site, amazed by the strength of the strike. The energy blast hits the ground and completely freezes the surrounding area. Spooked, the MC notes that it was not normal fire, as it turned the dirt into pure ice. Before he can recover, the second dragon dives from the sky, ready to attack. The red-scaled beast opens its jaw and activates its own lethal technique. Imamura quickly jumps back, dodging a gigantic pillar of flames. The power of the attack hits the surface with so much force that the scenery begins to melt. He watches in shock as the rock melts away in the face of the absurd heat of the strike. Analyzing the monster duo, the guy understands that he is dealing with opposing powers of extreme danger. The MC deduces that these abilities worked exactly like special moves in video games. It becomes clear that one of the beasts masters flames that freeze, while the other spits fire that melts everything. Worried about the disadvantage, he wonders if the mercenary also has some similar technique. But soon an idea pops up and he figures that if the enemies have abilities, maybe he himself has one too. As an answer to his thoughts, a new system screen suddenly glows right in front of him. Reading the info, the guy discovers in awe that he can indeed activate an ability of his own. With the dragons flying overhead ready to strike again, he accesses the details of his new power. The system reveals the rebirth ability, which allows him to respawn and steal the powers of defeated challengers. The MC is left totally stunned by the absurd capacity to absorb others' techniques. His attention is interrupted by Gul'dan's shout, telling him to keep his eyes on the fight. Taking advantage of the distraction, the intruder fires a bolt with his heavy crossbow. The projectile cuts through the air at high speed toward the dungeon boss. Confused, Imamura widens his eyes as he realizes the arrow simply vanished in midair. Unable to predict the trajectory, he ends up taking a direct hit to the shoulder. The mercenary smiles mockingly while the screen warns that the shooter ability has been activated. In pain, the MC confirms that the human hunter is also using his special tricks. Analyzing the injury, he notices that the projectile turned invisible for a brief moment before impact. More invisible attacks rain down on him, forcing the guy to perform acrobatics so as not to be pierced. He understands the attack pattern and concludes that he needs to take out the shooter first if he wants to win. Ignoring the winged beasts, the MC runs at top speed across the battlefield. Gul'dan laughs and keeps shooting non-stop, challenging the opponent's endurance. But Imamura does not back down and charges like a bolt of lightning, closing the gap between them in the blink of an eye. Suddenly, a screech of pain echoes through the air, catching the MC's attention during the rush. He is shocked to see the red dragon dropping to the ground, hit by one of its own master's invisible shots. Instead of helping, Gul'dan calls the creature an idiot and tells it to get up, threatening to turn it into a trophy if it is useless. Trapped by the control chains, the dragons look at their master with dread. Outraged by that cruelty, Imamura asks why the human attacked his own ally. The mercenary makes a mocking expression and replies that monsters are never allies. Cold and calculating, he states that those beasts are easy to replace if they drop in combat. The intruder's words make it clear that these creatures are forced to fight through torment. With a heavy heart, the MC completely understands that, in that dirty world, monsters are treated as simple tools. The hunters just capture, break their spirit, and then discard the animals without pity. The image of his little wolf brutally taken out reinforces this sick reality in his mind. Seeing the wounded dragon struggling while trying to stand up, the MC makes an impulsive decision. In a swift move, he stops his run and jumps in front of the hurt beast. Gul'dan is left clueless, seeing the dungeon boss stopping right in his tracks. Determined to break that cycle, Imamura positions himself in front of the creatures, ready to protect them from their own master. Seeing that reckless attitude, Gul'dan is shocked by the opponent's nerve. With an intense blue aura, Imamura states with conviction that he does not see monsters as mere tools. At that, he rushes forward quickly and lands a powerful hit directly on the adversary's weapon. The impact is so strong that the heavy crossbow and the human's control collar turn to dust in an instant. Maintaining the relentless stance, the MC stares at the intruder and asks what he's going to do now. Without his main weapon in protection, the mercenary breaks out in a cold sweat and goes completely silent. Panicking, the human steps back desperately and yells for the beasts to protect their master. Surprised by the command, the two dragons just stare at the man without taking any action. The intruder screams for them to move while the magic control seal begins to shatter in the air. Furious at the disobedience, the sadist calls the creatures useless garbage and threatens to slice them both. But, free from the chains, the twin dragons simply ignore the threat and take off together. From above, The beasts glare at their former owner with extreme rage, ready to strike back for the cruelty. Realizing the tables have turned, Gildan drops to his knees and wails, not believing what is happening. Wasting no time, the blue dragon fires a devastating freezing blast straight at the mercenary. The attack hits directly, completely freezing the intruder while he curses his own pathetic end. The winged beast keeps its focus on the ice block, ensuring the threat was entirely eliminated. Right after, the frozen sculpture of the human shatters completely, turning to dust in the dungeon air. The magic system displays an alert confirming that the challenger failed to invade the territory. Surprised by the outcome, the MC spots a new notification warning that an ability can be activated. The screen details the reburst technique, confirming that he met the conditions to steal the enemy's power. Without hesitation, the MC commands the activation of his newly discovered perk. Immediately, the interface confirms the extraction of the invisible shot that the human hunter used. The young man's body glows brightly as he absorbs the new, lethal move into his own arsenal. Recalling the fight, he is impressed to see that he can really steal the techniques from defeated intruders. Meanwhile, the twin beasts watch the mausoleum boss's weird glow with great curiosity. Soon the creatures land on the ground and start to growl, taking a defensive stance against him. Noticing the sudden tension, the guy widens his eyes at the threat. Quickly, he raises his hand and asks the dragons to hold on a bit before attacking. In a friendly tone, Imamura apologizes for scaring them during the confusion. He relaxes his stance and assures them he has absolutely no intention of fighting the two of them. The dragons look confused and the MC gets that he must look like a bizarre and incomprehensible monster to them. Suddenly, a golden system screen appears glowing right in front of him with an exclusive notice. Shocked, he stares at the panel revealing a unique ability available only to the dungeon boss. The floating message informs that he now has the power to add new monsters to his territory. The MC is totally stunned finding out he awakened a second special perk. Reading the details, he confirms that he can actually integrate those beasts into the mausoleum's domains. The system automatically focuses on the dragons in front of him, suggesting the immediate addition of the two allies. Imamura realizes right away that he has the chance to turn the creatures into official residents of that place. Amazed by the discovery, he looks at the majestic name of his new protective blessing. The young man shifts his gaze back to the winged beasts, processing the idea of giving them a new home. He concludes that having allies with devastating fire and ice powers would be an absurd boost to the defense. However, the excitement soon fades as he remembers that the location is the main target of cruel hunters. With that, the MC warns the beasts that the controller is gone and that they are free to leave. Keeping a gentle tone, the MC leaves the choice in their hands and asks what they want to do. The silence brings up painful memories of when the mercenary tormented them and treated them like garbage. The two creatures remain silent, processing the unexpected freedom they just gained. They look back at the MC, realizing he could easily force them to obey if he wanted to. Faced with that genuine kindness, the dragons feel they do not hate the presence of that strange monster. Making their final choice, the winged beasts calmly walk up to the MC. Surprised by the move, the guy asks if they really want to stay and be part of the place. Without hesitation, the twin beasts nod in agreement, accepting their new home. The boss's face lights up with joy, and he deeply thanks them for their trust. Immediately, he commands the system and activates the exclusive recruitment ability. A magical light envelops the bodies of the two dragons, confirming that they are now official residents of the territory. With that, the panel resets the number of present intruders to 0, signaling the end of combat. The MC notes with relief that, without enemies around, all monsters fully recover from their injuries. The peaceful moment is interrupted by a sudden noise of quick footsteps coming from the ruins. From behind the rubble, a little white paw steps carefully onto the lit ground. It is the pack of little wolves coming out of hiding running happily toward the MC. Relieved to see his little friends, Imamura reaches out his arms and asks if everyone is okay. The pups bark with happiness and start jumping around the MC in an adorable party. The guy crouches down and hugs the little wolves, feeling the warmth and affection of those harmless creatures. Staring at the little leader of the pack, the MC reflects that their courage gave him the strength to fight. One of the pups affectionately rubs its snout on his hand, showing pure gratitude. Touched by the action, he returns the affection and thanks them from the bottom of his heart for everyone's support. The little wolf shows radiant happiness, enjoying the safety its master provided. Nearby, the large dragons watch the mess with curiosity while the pups run around. The MC follows the peaceful interaction, happy to see his new allies blending in so fast. The calm scene makes tough memories of his past failures painfully resurface in his mind. But the guilt vanishes as he sees his new family complete, realizing he finally managed to keep everyone safe. Emanating his bluish aura, the young man adopts a confident stance and feels he has truly moved forward for the first time. Interrupting the reflection, one of the dragons comes very close and comments that he has human features. Taking a closer look at the dungeon boss, the beast quickly concludes that the guy is not human at all. The MC jumps in surprise, yelling in shock as he discovers that the winged creatures can actually talk. Under the divine light illuminating the rebuilt sanctuary, the new monster family enjoys a well-deserved peace. Getting back to a serious posture, Imamura listens to the twin dragons about the type of people who usually invade the dungeon. The winged creature explains that the challengers of that area are known as the Raushizoku clan. They are a cruel group of mercenaries who capture monsters to sell them as merchandise in the outside world. Holding one of the little wolves, the MC questions if those captured invaders are going to come back to the mausoleum. Without hesitation, the beasts confirm that their leader will surely come to clear the place someday using brute force and fear. The monster warns that this man's strength is on a completely absurd level. Imamura thinks that he has many other questions, but realizes that these painful memories should not be relived right now. The new allies go silent, processing the trauma of the past. With a gentle tone, the MC just thanks them for having shared this important info. Right after, he raises a finger and says he has a suggestion on what they should do next. The MC asks everyone to stay deep in the back of the dungeon for a while as he takes watch over the territory. He figures that if he keeps an eye directly from the main gate, he can react immediately to any sneak attack. The winged beasts stare at their new master in silence, seeming a bit apprehensive about the solo plan. The little wolf in his arms also shifts, letting out a small whine of concern. Smiling to calm them down, the guy places the pup on the ground next to the others and guarantees everything will be fine. Sitting on a tree branch, Imamura admits to himself that he is not entirely free from anxiety. But looking at his own hand, he remembers his stolen ability that copies the powers of defeated invaders. With a determined look, the MC concludes that the more enemies he takes down, the stronger he will get. He promises to fight, gather abilities, and exterminate that clan of mercenaries to bring permanent peace to his new home. Accepting that the calm might not last forever, the MC decides to focus on what he can do right now with the strength he has. Suddenly, his eyes go wide as he feels a suspicious presence approaching the area. The red system alert flashes in front of him, confirming that new hunters have just entered the dungeon. Through the main gate, heavy footsteps start echoing down the dark corridor of the ruins. A bunch of armed mercenaries walks through the entrance, proudly showing off the marks of the Ryuseizoku clan. One of the intruders comments in annoyance that they will soon catch the boss who stole their ally's dragon to execute him in the public square. The group laughs, confident in the absolute numbers advantage they brought to clear the area. Hidden in the shadows, the mausoleum boss watches the crowd and admits he has never fought against so many people at once. Not taking the danger seriously, the humans start betting money to see who will score the most takedowns that day. Hearing that casual cruelty, the MC is taken over by a silent fury. Wasting no time, he jumps from the tree like a bluish blur, outraged by their disregard for the monsters' lives. The heavy landing kicks up dust as he activates the stealth shot he just acquired. Staring down the enemy army, the MC knows fighting them all head-on would be a lost cause. Thinking fast, he decides that the first step to victory is to totally neutralize the gang's firepower. Using the new invisible technique, the guy fires projectiles with surgical precision straight at the mercenary's gear. Suddenly, one of the hunter's swords simply shatters in his hands. Chaos ensues instantly as other humans see their blades explode without understanding where the attack came from. Trying to keep order, a bulky raider tells everyone to stop freaking out over a low-level dungeon. Watching their despair, the MC spots an interesting weakness and comes up with a crucial theory. He connects the dots from previous fights and realizes that the human abilities in this world are linked to their weapons. With this valuable info, a perfect plan forms in the mausoleum boss's mind. Without hesitation, he goes back to channeling the invisible shot energy in his hands. Another spear is snapped in half, leaving its owner totally defenseless and shocked. Confident in his discovery, the MC concludes that breaking the enemy arsenal eliminates the threat without needing to end anyone. A rain of precise strikes hits the group, turning hammers, swords, and bows into useless scrap. In total panic, the intruders fall back tripping over each other, terrified by an attack they cannot even see. In the midst of the mess, one of the mercenaries activates a special vision ability and tracks the enemy aura. Imamura dodges quickly and notices that human powers are not limited to just physical damage. Taking advantage of the opening, a furious swordsman charges and fires a powerful wind blade at him. With enhanced reflexes, the MC slides across the ground and escapes the cutting strike by a hair. Keeping absolute focus, he decides to prioritize dodging while pressing on with his main strategy. With agile acrobatic moves, the guy lands far out of reach from the surviving enemies. Furious about the humiliation, the frontline mercenary yells for the gang to attack all at once. But the MC gives them no opening and keeps up a relentless pace of destroying all the gear that enters his line of sight. One by one, the enemy blades shatter in midair with a dry metallic crash. Without their combat tools, the raiders freeze, exchanging looks full of dread. Faced with that untouchable monster and empty-handed, the clan's confidence evaporates instantly. Staring down the scary presence of the Guardian, the intruders finally grasped the adversary's true power. Completely broken psychologically, one of the guys drops what is left of his weapon and gives up on fighting. Fear spreads like wildfire, and the hunters start retreating desperately toward the mausoleum's exit. Within seconds, the supposedly deadly invasion turns into a chaotic escape to save their own skin. The system screen fires off multiple alerts confirming that the challengers are running away from the combat zone. Seeing the widespread panic, the dungeon boss is surprised by the group's quick surrender. In this moment of relief, the magic interface signals that one of his secret perks has been triggered. Confused by the sudden notice, he has no idea what caused the activation. The screen starts pouring out a festival of notifications reporting the acquisition of all the mercenaries' magical abilities. Shocked by the flood of power, the young man realizes he managed to steal their techniques without even needing to hurt them. With the pieces falling into place, a big light bulb goes off in the MC's head. He figures out that the system considers their cowardly escape as a total failure in the ruins invasion. With a confident smile, the MC realizes that just kicking the hunters out alive is enough to absorb their powers for free. Nearby, a last panting hunter complains bitterly about his own teammates rushing off. The arrogant human refuses to accept defeat and remembers that this place was supposed to be the weakest spot to make easy money. Feeling the hostile intent at his back, the Guardian quickly turns toward the new threat. Charging energy in his bow, the intruder plans to set fire to the sanctuary's vegetation to collect the monster's remains. Driven by greed, the man fires a massive fireball straight into the heart of the dungeon. Caught totally off guard by the sea of flames, one of the little wolf pups freezes in terror with nowhere to run. With fierce determination, Imamura charges at top speed and yells that he will not let that cowardly act go down. The system warns that the wind blade was activated, and he fires a gigantic cutting strike. The blasts of air slice the fireball right in half, putting out the flames entirely in the blink of an eye. Hitting dead on, the energy cuts the gear and injures the greedy mercenary. Squirming in pain, the man falls backward in despair, having no clue where that counterattack came from. Another raider widens his eyes in panic and notices that the monster just used exactly their swordsman's ability. Emanating a terrifying blue aura, the boss slowly steps forward, making the human see the true danger of that dungeon. With an unforgiving look, the MC warns that this place is no longer a free farming ground. Faced with that overwhelming threat, the intruders lose every ounce of courage and scream in terror. Without a second thought, the whole group turns around and runs desperately to save their lives. The MC just watches quietly as the cowards dash out through the main exit. At that, the heavy stone gates of the mausoleum begin to move to lock the place down. With a muffled thud, the doors close completely, sealing the safety of the sanctuary. The guy stares at the blocked entrance, feeling the combat adrenaline slowly drop. He recalls when he was just a fragile skeleton, remembering that in the beginning he could not do anything against even a single person. But now things have changed, and he acknowledges with relief that he managed to protect everyone even while fighting an armed gang. A gentle smile appears on his face, bringing a rewarding feeling of mission accomplished. The panel resets the challenger count to 0, and the little wolves run happily to meet their hero in the safety of the hall. Far from there, in the East Capital, inside the Ryo Suzoku clan's hideout, Lord Pedro de Tlas comments on the failed invasion of that harmless dungeon. Sitting comfortably on his throne, Alvaro mocks the situation, saying he does not recall having such weak men under his command. With a cruel gleam in his eye, the giant states that useless weaklings serve only as chunks of meat. The noble lets out a sadistic laugh and notes that, as usual, the losers turned into dragon food, wishing he had seen the show. Suddenly, heavy and hurried footsteps break the quiet of the corridor and approach the main hall. The surviving mercenary bursts into the room in total panic, yelling that it is impossible to clear that F-rank territory. Interrupted, the clan leader pauses his drink and shoots a confused look at the door. Stuttering with dread, the henchman insists there is 0 chance they will ever win in that place again. He frantically tries to explain that the creature not only copied everyone's abilities, but used them like they were nothing. Recalling the Guardian's deadly glare, the hunter warns that the thing is way too dangerous and is no ordinary monster. Alvara stares at the subordinate with absolute disgust, thinking the cowards came crawling back just to make excuses for their own failure. Sporting a wicked smile, the giant declares they are nothing but worthless trash. A gigantic beast hiding in the shadows quickly steps out, leaving the surviving mercenary paralyzed with horror. The clan leader calls his large pet dragon, coldly warning that it is finally time for fresh meat. With nowhere to run, the cowardly intruder is brutally grabbed by the monster's jaws. Chaos ensues across the carpet while the screams echo, and Pedro watches it all comfortably, praising the beautiful spectacle. Letting out an excited chuckle, the Lord admits that the story told by the late henchman is very curious to say the least. He analyzes the situation and comments that, by the rules of that world, there should not be a boss protecting such a low-level dungeon. The noble asks if Alvaro really buys this crazy rumor, confessing that the whole thing smells incredibly fishy. Reflecting on the loss of staff, the mercenary recalls that his elite shooter and the two-headed dragon still have not come back from there. A greedy smile takes over the suit-wearing guy's face as he processes the potential of this anomaly. Pedro carefully explains that rare monsters yield rare materials, and that translates to a lot of cash in their pockets. The giant immediately agrees, thinking this unknown boss guy sounds like top-tier merchandise. With a malicious and profit-thirsty expression, Alvaro admits he really liked this news. At that, the noble proposes doubling his cut of the profits and suggests the leader himself go investigate the place personally. While the humans plan their next atrocity, peace reigns solemn outside the forest mausoleum under the sunlight. Relaxed, the territory boss strolls calmly along the tree roots, pampered by the adorable pups skipping around him. One of the little ones barks excitedly, trying at all costs to grab its master's attention. The young man looks back a bit confused and asks what the little furball wants to show him. Stopping his walk, he watches the little animal sit cutely on the ground, pointing out a new path for them to explore. Quickly, the little beast starts running again and leads the expedition deeper into the thick woods. Intrigued by the unusual behavior, the MC follows slowly, wondering if something happened deep down in the ruins. The two push forward between giant roots and a dense vegetation that blocks out natural light. Checking out the increasingly dark environment, the MC comments that they have walked pretty deep into the structure. The path leads them straight to a cavernous tunnel lit up by the strong green light of the local flora itself. Imamura recognizes the area instantly, remembering when he came to pick the glowing mushrooms in that exact same corridor. The pup suddenly stops and lets out a short bark, making the guy focus his attention on the end of the trail. His eyes go wide in pure shock when he finally sees what his buddy wanted to show him. A majestic golden gate stands tall right in the middle of the cave, blocking the way with a divine energy. Completely speechless, the dungeon leader stares at the monumental barrier, having no idea what to say. Trying to process the mysterious find, he just stammers and observes in awe that the thing is a giant door. Looking at his happy little guide, the boss says with absolute certainty that the structure was not there before. Driven by curiosity, Imamura carefully reaches his hand out toward the golden surface of the gate. As soon as his fingertips touch the glowing barrier, the physical contact triggers the structure's protection spells. An intense burst of light knocks the guy back, creating a loud boom that echoes all through the tunnel. Shielding his face from the brightness, he reads the system screen verifying his identity as the current dungeon guardian. A new message announces that the territory's rank evolution system is online, leaving the MC surprised by the reveal. A blinding pillar of energy shoots up from the base of the door, straight into the stone ceiling of the cave. After the power spike, the majestic gate stabilizes, shifting to give off a soft and steady glow. Holding the startled little wolf in his arms, the guy notices the shaking stopped and tries to figure out what that light show was all about. But right after, the interface throws a red error, stating that the requirements for evolution were not met. Checking out the warning screen, the MC realizes that wanting to level up is not enough. There are clear conditions to be beaten. A new notice reveals that the sealed passage grants access to an unexplored sector of the dungeon. It becomes very clear in the restrictions that the only way to unlock this new area is by advancing the mausoleum's rank. Putting the pieces together, the MC gets that the next step in his journey is to fortify the place to unlock this secret expansion. At that moment, the winged beasts glide down through the hole in the ceiling, asking curiously what that golden monument is. With a cheerful smile, Imamura greets the twin dragon, glad to already have his family there to tackle this new mystery together. Landing next to the MC, the two-headed dragon asks out of curiosity if dungeons can actually rank up. The guy turns around and replies that this is not normal at all. The winged creature agrees and admits it had never heard of anything like it either. Imamura ponders the consequences of this discovery, admitting he has no clue what happens if the territory evolves. Staring at the massive golden structure, the MC comments that maybe their home really is special. Deep in thought, the boss focuses his attention on the notice about an unexplored dungeon sector. The imposing door shines in the dark, guarding a space that nobody has ever managed to reach before. Taken by curiosity, the guy wonders what kind of challenge or reward must be waiting in there. At that, the MC pets the little wolf pup, thanking him for having found that hidden spot. The magic screen floats in the air, confirming that this is the deepest area of the mausoleum, and access remains blocked. Another glowing notification displays the title of First Sacred Ark, signaling the release of the first protective seal. Switching focus, Imamura jumps up to the higher branches and calls the winged creature to ask its name. Curious about his new companions, the MC asks if the day has finally come for them to reveal who they are. But the two-headed dragon stays silent, keeping a look of total distrust on the guardian. Noticing the creature's hesitation, the young man backs off and says it is okay, noting there is still a barrier between them. Suddenly, the MC is caught off guard by a loud boom echoing off the cave walls. The two-headed dragon turns its face in a panic, warning that the noise is the sound of the main gate opening. Looking toward the entrance, the MC realizes right away that a new challenger just breached the sanctuary. The system interface flashes red, confirming the hostile presence while heavy footsteps walk down the corridor. Wasting no time, the winged creature quickly takes off to check out the threat up close. At the front of the invasion line, the leader Alvara steps up declaring he is going to wreck that useless territory. The level 66 mercenary guarantees he is going to sell every single piece of the monsters he finds. Hiding in the shadows, Imamura goes into shock, immediately recognizing the intruder who just showed up. The young man tensely realizes that this is the rival clan leader and acknowledges that the giant's power outclasses everyone he has ever faced. Seeing the winged creature fly over the enemy, the guardian decides he needs to stop the invader right there to end that nightmare. Channeling the fury into his hands, the dungeon boss makes a bright blue magic energy start pulsing. Clenching his fists tight, the young man braces himself for the incoming fight. Determined to protect his home, he swears to finish this once and for all, using everything he has learned up to now. Dashing toward the battlefield, the MC warns he is going to use his new techniques to take the mercenary down. The system confirms the Phantom Strike activation, forming a massive cutting blue energy spike around the guy. However, the invading leader reacts in time and blocks the magic attack using his huge sword. Shocked by the adversary's speed, the MC cannot believe his stealth strike was stopped so easily. With a piercing glare, the giant instantly turns in the exact direction the attack was launched from. Resting the weapon on his shoulder, the human mocks the opponent's strategy and asks why he is hiding. Imamura lands on a high branch, apprehensively realizing the warrior spotted his position in a heartbeat. Staring at the young guy up in the tree, Alvaro deduces that this can only be the rumored boss of the trash dungeon. A tense silence takes over the hall as the guardian and his allies stare down at the mercenary gang below. Scanning the area, the clan leader finally spots the two-headed dragon alongside the enemy. The winged creature lands near the MC, while the human notices in surprise that the control collars have been taken off. The warrior adjusts his stance and comments he has no idea how the beasts managed to break free on their own. Showing an unforgiving look, the mercenary decrees that disobedient tools lose all their value. Hearing the giant's cruel threat, the two-headed dragon freezes in pure terror. Driven by rage, the MC steps in front of his friends and yells that they are not mere combat items. The intruder cracks a twisted smile and finds it a joke, seeing the hunting material trying to protect the hunting gear. Mura holds a deadly stare from up in the tree, while the giant keeps laughing hard at the ridiculous scene. Wasting no time, the giant commands his men and orders the gang to push forward to eliminate all targets. Seeing the raiders rushing in, the winged creature gears up to hit back against the attack. One of the heads starts gathering a strong, bright blue magic energy inside its mouth. The system confirms the hail flame activation, firing off a freezing blast against the crowd. In sync, the other half triggers the folding flame and spits an intense orange wave of fire. The explosive combo hits the clan's front line dead on, throwing the mercenaries far away from the impact. The MC widens his eyes, blown away by the destructive power of his partner's magic abilities. Scanning the battlefield, the young man notices the fire completely stops the entire enemy group from advancing. Thanking them for the perfect opening, Imamura jumps from the tree, activating the wind blade to finish off the intruders for good. During the fall, the MC combos the cutting magic with the twisted step to boost his accuracy. Right after, he adds the curved blade, chaining together a complex move that completely shifts the strike's path. The magic wind blasts zigzag through the air, slicing the clueless hunters from multiple angles at once. Annoyed by the team's casualties, Alvarez switches targets and decides to focus on taking out the traitorous winged creature first. With a voice full of fury, the giant orders his big dragon to devour the birds. Following the command, the giant monster opens its jaws and lunges fast straight at the two-headed dragon in the sky. While the beast strikes, the human crushes a small glowing artifact in the palm of his hand. Instantly, a sinister light starts glowing from the two-headed dragon's neck. The MC recognizes the submission ring, forcing the winged creature to land, as Alvarez states the item's control is absolute. Squeezing the magic tight, the sadistic mercenary warns that the punishment for disobeying will be brutal this time. The clan leader coldly commands one of the dragon's heads to eliminate the other half right on the spot. Pushed by the control spell, the winged creature goes into total panic, fighting desperately against its own body. Taking advantage of the grim distraction, Imamura yells out in despair, telling his friends to get out of the big monster's way. The dominated bird looks up, scared by the guardian's sudden shout. The enemy beast's massive jaws are already wide open, just inches away, ready to swallow them whole. Paralyzed by the human spell, the two-headed dragon accepts its fate, realizing it won't be able to dodge the lunge. In the blink of an eye, the NC dashes at an insane speed, tearing through the air to save his allies. Feeling the wind from the impact, the winged creature opens its eyes, confused upon noticing it is actually still functioning. Escaping by a hair, Imamura carries the dragon in his arms, while the invading monster chomps on nothing but air. Furious over the successful rescue, the giant points his sword and orders his henchmen to run after the MC. Away from the immediate danger, the guy holds the two-headed dragon tight against his chest and feels the creature's body shaking uncontrollably. The right head apologizes for the sudden panic and confesses to still being terrified of the human who placed that mark on him. Understanding his ally's trauma, Imamura lowers his guard and tells his companion to flee deep into the forest. The two-headed dragon is shocked by the order and questions if the hero is really going to face the entire invasion alone. Down below, the mercenaries point their weapons at the high branches and yell, ordering them to shoot the flying target. Keeping his cool in the midst of the chaos, the MC assures the little monster that everything is going to be all right. He firmly states that he will wait right there until his friends are truly free. Hearing the Guardian's promise, the winged creatures are left completely speechless by such loyalty. At that moment, the hero leaps from the top of the tree, covered in his bright magical aura, straight into the battlefield. The henchmen notice the drop and charge with everything they have, ordering the immediate elimination of the mausoleum boss. But the young man holds a piercing gaze and swears to himself that he will put an end to that fight to protect everyone. Activating his vision and detection skills all at once, he scans the area and counts that there are only 10 targets left standing. Wasting no time, the young man dashes across the ground, slicing through the enemies using a fluid combination of the Phantom Strike and the Wind Blade. The mercenaries can't even keep up with the Guardian's speed and are taken down one by the invisible cutting magic. Fallen and defeated in the ruins, one of the invaders still manages to mutter in terror that the monster is way too strong. Looking out of the corner of his eye at the wreckage he just caused, the MC notes that now he only needs to eliminate the leader. Walking heavily over his own team's fallen bodies, Alvaro finally realizes that he is the only one left standing in the hall. The clan leader glares at his defeated soldiers on the ground and coldly calls them all useless. Without the slightest hesitation, the warrior points his red sword and commands his massive beast to use the Devour Boost skill. Obeying the spell, the monster unhinges its jaw, exhaling a sinister energy, ready to strike the ground. Imamura's eyes widen in amazement as he realizes the enemy just forced the activation of one of the creature's techniques. In a brutal move, the immense dragon lunges and bites the leg of one of the mercenaries who is still conscious. The hero freezes in place upon witnessing the absurd devastation unfolding right in front of him. The scavengers scream in despair as they are chewed up and torn apart by the very creature they brought for the attack. Covering his mouth in disbelief, the MC realizes that the crazed human is forcing the beast to consume his own henchmen. The monster continues to swallow the human form while its injured body begins to pulse with the absorbed energy. Instantly, thick dark scales start tearing through the skin of the beast's arms in a mutation process. The invading leader mocks the young man's shock and explains that his hunting partner gets much tougher when it feeds. Extremely sharp claws sprout from the monster's paws, increasing the weight and lethality of its entire bone structure. The warrior finishes the explanation, proudly showing off his creature, which has doubled in size and taken on a demonic appearance. Consumed by the overdose of strength, the immense dragon lets out a deafening roar that shakes every wall in the dungeon. Next, the mutated beast begins to gather a destructive sphere of magical energy deep in its throat. Analyzing the glow of the growing flames, the guardian panics, realizing that strike will wipe out the mausoleum. Sprinting at top speed toward the threat, the hero declares that he needs to stop the monster before it fires. But uncertainty quickly hits him, and he wonders how he will manage to block a beast of such absurd proportions. Suddenly, the MC looks up at the beast's neck and remembers a crucial detail from the previous combat. The young man concludes that breaking the control collar embedded in the giant monster is the only way to break the command. Focusing cutting magic into his hands, Imamura charges forward, focused on destroying the containment artifact as quickly as possible. The colossal beast notices the charge and fires a massive blast of pure force right into the young man's path. Before the hero can dodge the impact, the invasion leader comes tearing through the air with his heavy sword. The mercenary blocks the guardian's swift charge with the side of his weapon in a thunderous clash of energies. Surprised by the sudden reflex, the MC freezes seeing his access route being cut off so easily. Staring the boy down up close, Alvaro mocks the useless boss's desperate attempt to save the place. Protecting his living weapon, the warrior states that he will never let trash break the control and activates a new spell. The hero steps back, tense, realizing that the human's defense is solid and he won't be able to just pass right through. Without facing any interruption, the immense dragon goes back to focusing an even more lethal charge of energy aimed upwards. Seeing the purple light grow, the young man understands that if he fails here, the entire dungeon will be turned to ashes. Analyzing Alvara's flawless defense, the Guardian is absolutely certain that the glowing collar is the command core. The enemy leader stands still like a brick wall on the front line, keeping access to the beast totally blocked. Refusing to accept defeat, the MC jumps, firing his curved blade through the air, and warns that he is going to shatter the object. But the mercenary fires back, warning that the kid isn't going to lay a single finger on the equipment. Using gravity to his advantage, the human plunges the sword into the ground, triggering the devastating tremor skill. The force of the impact shatters the floor into a gigantic crater, raising stone pillars that send the hero flying away. Being thrown backward by the gust of dust, Imamura hears his opponent's mocking laughter echoing behind him. The young man locks his gaze in desperation, feeling his time running out to save his home. Right behind the smokescreen, the great dragon reaches the peak of its lethal charge with lightning sparking in its mouth. Landing his feet on a raised root, the MC regains his balance, ensuring there is no more room for hesitation. Determined to break that chain, the hero plans to risk everything by combining the Phantom Strike with the dungeon's hidden techniques. Flying back to the front line, the Guardian promises to protect all his allies and swears not to back down anymore. In an absurd burst of speed, the young man appears like lightning right in the enemy leader's face, completely breaking his defense. Caught totally off guard by the immediate return, Alvaro hastily tries to swing his heavy blade in a desperate move. Seconds before the impact, Imamura's eyes widen as he feels a strong magical presence coming directly from above. Cutting through the smoke cloud in a low flight, the two-headed dragon crosses the sky, returning to the center of the battle. The creatures announce that they will hold off the attacks from the leader and the big monster, so the young man can focus solely on the neck. Fulfilling the promise, the twin birds dive, firing crisscrossing spheres of fire and ice right at the mutated beast's head. Shielding his eyes from the hot blast, Alvaro blocks the attack and gets irritated by the audacity of that flock of weaklings. Slicing through the fire with a sword swing, the mercenary asks with hatred if the birds think they can take him on. Consumed by fury, the giant warrior tears through the dust, running and yelling for the traitors not to dare oppose him. Taking advantage of the opening handed to him by his friends, the Guardian gathers his absolute limit of strength and decides to end it. Radiating beams of blue energy, the hero swears to wipe out the nightmare of that invasion with his final charge. With a quick spin, the MC fires a massive rift of bright dark magic that swallows up the cave's space. Seeing the cataclysmic power tearing through the air, the two-headed dragon dives out of the strike's path quickly. With no time to dodge, Alvaro and his colossal mount are left paralyzed right in the middle of the cutting beam's trajectory. The clash is deafening as the wave sweeps over the creature's neck, popping the mark of enslavement in a massive detonation. The gravitational force tosses the human leader like a rag doll into the shadows as he drops his weapon in midair. With a bleeding hand after having his defense pulverized, the warrior plummets toward the ground, totally out of the fight. Shocked by the strike's result, one of the twin birds wonders if the monster really broke the chain of submission. After all, that control ring is an artifact of absolute command over monsters, theoretically being impossible to destroy. But the dungeon boss went straight for the target and shattered the magical equipment as if he had done it before. Unable to comprehend the absurdity of that strength, the winged creature wonders what kind of mysterious entity that guardian is. On the other side of the hall, the enemy leader grips the remains of his weapon and tries to stay on his feet amidst the chaos. Overcome by madness, the warrior smiles maniacally and warns that he won't even leave dust behind of that guardian. Focusing the rest of his magical aura into the broken blade, the invader swears he is going to tear the kid apart, along with the whole dungeon. The destructive energy wraps around what's left of the weapon, ready to unleash one last devastating attack against the place. However, before the human can react, Imamura is already descending from the sky like a blue comet heading straight for him. With a resolute heart, the MC remembers his choice to do everything in his power to protect everyone there. Locking onto his opponent with a piercing look, the hero declares that the cruel invasion ends right there. In a clean and swift motion, the young man pierces through the mercenary's defense and lands a fatal blow of cutting magic dead on. The flash of the collision explodes, intensely illuminating the entire forest area inside the ancient ruin. Seconds later, the light fades, and silence finally reigns once again among the peaceful trees of the mausoleum. Landing softly on the ground, Imamura lets out a sigh of relief while the twin birds watch him safely. Far from there, Alvara crawls pathetically across the ground toward the exit, still cursing the monsters as useless material. Spitting blood, the warrior turns his face consumed by hatred and tells those creatures not to dare look down on him. At that moment, a gigantic, terrifying shadow covers the fallen body of the defeated mercenary. Glaring at its former master with total disgust, the colossal monster states that the human spent his entire life draining other lives. The beast recalls that it could never fight back because of the power of the chains and was forced to be tied to that cruel monster. Unhinging its immense jaws, the great dragon concludes that this makes it guilty too and decides to take responsibility. Realizing his own imminent end, the leader falls into total panic and starts cursing non-stop at the beast. The invader's desperate scream echoes through the hall as the beast executes its final sentence upon him. Back in the center of the forest, the MC watches the system notification confirm that the number of enemies has reached 0. Staring at the massive door of the mausoleum, the hero understands that the agonizing battle against the Hunter clan is finally over. Suddenly, a new skill window pops up asking if he wants to add the Great Dragon to his army. The boy analyzes the glowing screen for a moment, surprised by the unexpected possibility offered by the artificial intelligence. Turning to the twin birds, the young man tells them he can use this technique to recruit them and asks what they want to do. Before an answer comes, the colossal beast approaches the group and states with a deep voice that it is leaving that place. Hearing the monster's firm decision, Imamura shows an understanding expression and agrees without hesitation. The twin birds are confused by how easily he let it go and remind the boss that this is a rare chance to get a very strong ally. But the MC explains that the beast has already suffered too much under forced control and that he won't act like the invading clan. Maintaining his composure, the young man adds that the giant surely has things it wants to do out in the world. The Great Dragon confirms the hero's theory and reveals its personal mission to free other companions of its kind. The beast recalls that many other monsters remain enslaved and are suffering at the hands of the rest of the criminal organization. Lamenting its own past, the creature confesses that for a long time it was just a trapped beast forced to obey. Raising its head with pride, the immense dragon decides that devouring that cursed clan is its proper way of seeking redemption. With a powerful flap of its wings, the colossal beast takes flight, creating a strong updraft in the mausoleum's forest. The hero and his small allies shield themselves from the wind as the giant bids farewell to the birds and the master of the area. Flying majestically toward the illuminated exit, the monster thanks him from the bottom of its heart for its newfound freedom. As soon as the beast's silhouette vanishes through the opening in the ceiling, the group watches silence take over the immense stone structure. Still amazed by the imposing giant's departure, the small winged creatures agree in a soft murmur. Imamura turns his gaze back to the two remaining companions, keeping a gentle and extremely patient expression. Breaking the silence, he asks directly if the twins also want to return to the outside world and be free. Scratching the back of his neck, the Guardian comments that his dungeon is a pretty weird place, while the system initiates a full recovery of the area. The young man calmly confesses that he doesn't hate the place, while the little creatures remind him that he had asked for their names earlier. Floating happily in front of the hero, the right head introduces itself as Ada, and the left one quickly chimes in saying it's Yata. Charmed by his partners, the MC brings the creatures close to his chest and excitedly thanks them for trusting him with that information. In this peaceful moment, the system interrupts with several alerts, notifying him that it is initializing the ranking after counting the invaders. A massive pillar of light plummets from the ceiling, swallowing the boy and the monsters in a sudden explosion of magical energy. The floating panel officially declares that the hidden requirements for the dungeon's evolution have been fully met. Caught off guard by the bright flash, the hero is left completely clueless as to what is happening to his home. The mysterious light illuminates the entire environment as the mausoleum structure begins its transformation and leveling up process. The system then coldly informs him that the former leader of the region named Archimond is officially gone. With this confirmation, the ruin's ancestral energy begins to expand rapidly, altering everything around it. The glowing alert finishes the message by announcing that the evolution to rank E has been completed with absolute success. As soon as the light dims, the boy blinks in confusion, trying to process that avalanche of information from the artificial intelligence. Looking in awe at the Great Wall, he realizes that the terrain has drastically changed and is now filled with new rock formations. Walking through the rubble with his friends, Imamura wonders if that layer of debris collapsed from the outer walls of the place. Still trying to understand the rules of that world, the kid wonders what this area evolution actually means in practice. Suddenly, the wolf pup comes running at top speed across the new terrain, catching the attention of the whole group. Relieved to see his little protege safe, Imamura kneels down to greet him and immediately asks what is going on. The little wolf jumps around excitedly and starts barking frantically, wagging its fluffy tail from side to side. Holding the little creature, the hero tells him that he still doesn't understand that language, but he knows it's something important. The small animal quickly breaks free and runs a few steps forward, barking for his saviors to follow him on the walk. Even without understanding the exact words, the MC trusts his ally's call and is certain he needs to follow him. Wasting no time, the young man tells the twin birds that they are going to push even deeper into the remodeled forest. After walking for a while, the group arrives at a dark sector covered in twinkling lights, leaving the boy amazed by the sight. Looking closely, the Guardian is in disbelief to notice that the old glowing blue mushrooms are jumping and moving on their own. The small luminous fungi sprout from the ground in little groups as they clumsily hop near the immense roots. Immediately, several system screens pop up over the little creatures, classifying absolutely all of them as level 1 mushrooms. Shocked by the interface's revelation, the MC discovers that those harmless plants from the beginning were monsters the whole time. However, his surprise with the local fauna is cut short when he notices an immense golden glow coming from just behind the small pack. Walking among the hopping fungi, Imamura finally comes face to face with a huge door that had been hidden there. The system announces that the requirements have unlocked the unexplored Gate of Shadows, while the golden seals begin to undo themselves. Excited by the system's message, Imamura realizes that the unexplored sector has just been unlocked. Holding the little wolf in his arms, the young man understands that this was exactly what the small animal was trying to show them. Confident, the Guardian walks down the illuminated path surrounded by the jumping mushrooms. The little magical plants keep clumsily bouncing around him. Standing in front of the glowing passage, the hero asks his partners if this is where he is supposed to enter. Observing the energy of the place, the MC reflects that the dungeon's monsters are on his side. Keeping calm, the boy concludes that exploring this new area might help him discover more about that world. At that, the group begins to descend a long stone staircase that leads straight into the ruins underground. Reaching the bottom of the steps, the young man notices that the path ends at a dead-end wall. But looking closer at the dirt floor, he realizes that there seems to be something buried there. Immediately, the small fungi gather and begin digging up the soil in a frantic manner. With a lot of effort, the little creatures pull back the dirt, revealing what was hidden. The Guardian is impressed seeing the speed at which the little monsters dig the hole. Surprised by their dedication, the young man understands that the plants are doing all the hard work for him. Suddenly, a majestic golden chest emerges from the earth, glowing intensely as a reward for the evolution. Reading the system warning, Imamura is shocked to see that it is the sixth sacred chest. The floating panel confirms that the item is the materialized reward from the Forest Mausoleum's level up. Standing before the glowing chest, the hero finds it funny how all of this works exactly like a video game. Landing close to the ground, the twin birds excitedly celebrate the discovery of the treasure. Flying in circles, the creatures deduce that continuing to level up the area will attract even more riches. However, the twins quickly realize that valuable items will also draw the attention of greedy new invaders. The boy gets tense upon concluding that this could worsen the attacks and bring even more dangerous enemies. Trying to shift the focus, the birds ask if he isn't curious to see the chest's contents. Deciding to check it out, the MC asks his friends to step back a little just in case. Carefully, the young man reaches out his hand to open the lid and uncover the mystery of the artifact. As soon as he touches the structure, a bright flash escapes through the crack of the magical box. Gently floating out of the chest, a golden star-shaped accessory emerges. Analyzing the shiny object, the Guardian remarks that the piece looks a lot like a ring. Immediately, an interface screen pops up, classifying the artifact as a piece of equipment with a guaranteed effect. Excited by the information, the hero concludes that it isn't an ordinary piece of jewelry. But upon reading the description of the effect, Imamura goes into total shock at the ring's absurd power. Confused by his reaction, the twin birds ask if the accessory has some special combat skill. Clenching the item in his hand, the MC agrees that the technique will certainly be very useful. Worried, he confesses that using this power might end up dragging everyone in the dungeon to the front lines. Hiding the artifact, the young man apologizes and says he can't show them how it works just yet. Watching their leader, the birds begin to question what kind of mysterious strength the boy really possesses. After all, he managed to evolve the entire area and broke an unbreakable magical chain with his bare hands. In awe of his imposing presence, the companions wonder who exactly that guardian is. Meanwhile, the young man thinks about a way to protect everyone without using the jewelry and suddenly gets an idea. Turning to his allies with enthusiasm, the hero asks for their help to put the plan into action. The little jumping mushrooms stand still on the ground, not understanding what is going on. Explaining the strategy, the young man states that he can use the plant's digging skill to remodel the place. Confident, the MC suggests that they all work together to build a secret hideout right there. Wasting no time, the entire group starts moving the dirt, digging deep into the forest's underground. Using the rubble generated by the dungeon's evolution, they stack the stones to structure the walls. To finish the camouflage, they cover the whole outside with foliage to blend in with the environment. Satisfied with the result of their joint effort, the boy announces that they have finished construction. Revealing a massive illuminated underground cave, the hero declares that their safe hideout is ready. The new map of the area shows the camouflage space far from the dungeon's main entrance. Sitting on the floor with a little wolf, the guardian thanks everyone for their help with the heavy lifting. Curious, the twin birds ask if they can already move into their new home and receive immediate confirmation. Showing the spacious interior beneath the roots of the great tree, the young man assures them that enemy attacks won't reach them there. He also points to a hidden emergency tunnel that leads even deeper into the forest in case they need to run. The dark path gives off a slight, chilly breeze coming from the depths of the mausoleum. Despite the darkness, the little creatures happily settle in, finding the new home very cozy. Petting the wolf, Imamura promises that everyone will be safe in that shelter against any threat. Seeing his small allies peacefully fall asleep, the MC wishes them a good night's rest. Walking toward the exit, the young man reflects that evolving the dungeon was the best way to create a home for them. In his past life on Earth, the concept of leveling up just meant an endless and exhausting competition. But in that new fantasy world, he realizes that the system rewards his struggles with actual skills. Recalling his own destructive power, the boy understands that gaining more strength has a clear purpose. With a serene smile, he accepts that this power is the only tool capable of protecting his friends from meeting their end. Heading back to the tunnel, the hero decides to keep watch outside in case new hunters decide to show up. Just then, one of the twin birds silently wakes up in the dark, watching the leader's footsteps. Emerging from the underground path, Imamura reaches the illuminated area of the forest and confirms that the escape route is perfect. Right behind him, the magical bird lands near the water, keeping the MC company. Noticing his ally's presence, the young man turns his head, surprised that he isn't sleeping in the hideout. The bird's two heads start moving around restlessly by the edge of the glowing lake. Concerned about the sudden reaction, the guardian asks if something is wrong with them. Staring at the boy seriously, the winged creature prepares to ask an important question. Breaking the silence, the twins question why the hero is trying so hard to take care of them. Caught off guard, the young man is left speechless as the bird asks who he really is. Totally hyped up, the little creatures start firing off questions, wanting to know about his family and his past. The last question hits the young man hard, leaving him deep in thought about the memories of his old life. Awkwardly scratching the back of his neck, the guardian tries to find a simple answer to explain his complicated story. During the conversation with his friends, Imamura explains that his original parents were perfectly normal humans. Looking back at the past, he confesses that his earliest memory from his other life is a very lonely one. At that time, the young boy found himself suffering a lot from the cold and constantly thinking about his own hunger. But, even in the face of hardships, the kid remembers the welcoming hands that guided him along the way. His parents always made sure they would be safe together no matter what happened. That affection filled the child's heart with joy as he called out for them in their small home. The guardian reveals that the couple welcomed him with open arms even without knowing where he came from. However, all that peace crumbled the day a massive disaster hit the region without warning. Their old home was completely swallowed by the wreckage, and his adoptive parents never returned. Listening closely, the twins comment that the boss's family didn't even have to look alike physically. At that point, the little creatures confess that living in that same welcoming environment was their biggest dream. Touched by his partner's words, the MC realizes that deep down he had always sought to protect that unity. Thanking the little wolf for the comfort, the young man says that he is already feeling much better about everything. Meanwhile, one of the magical birds watches the leader with deep, entirely reflective focus. The bird concludes that, even without understanding the origin of his power, it now makes total sense why he protects the dungeon. Far away from there, the sun sets, revealing the imposing metropolitan infrastructure of the great capital. The scene shifts to the depths of the underground research lab located in the East District. Resting on the couch, a researcher disinterestedly analyzes a formal petition sent by the local lord. Finding the request unusual, she comments that the job involves investigating and completely destroying the forest mausoleum. Reading the extermination order for the place, the woman reacts with extreme curiosity and interest in the unexpected mission. Intrigued by such a low-ranked dungeon causing serious trouble, she decides they are going to study the case thoroughly. While danger brews in the big city, the protected forest remains quiet under the daylight. But this calm is shattered when a strong vibration rocks the shelter's stone ceiling. The sudden tremor catches the whole group off guard, putting the hero on high alert. Immediately, the system warns of new challengers while a squad of mercenaries mocks their way into the place. Agitated by the invasion, the twins deduce that if the old gang is gone, this must be a rookie hunter faction. Keeping his cool, the MC calms his little friends and assures them that he'll take care of the problem out there himself. Running through the woods at top speed, the young man swears he will protect that place and all the monsters at any cost. Clueless to the imminent threat, the invaders stop in confusion upon noticing a swift shadow plummeting straight from the sky. Recognizing the glowing target as the area boss, the intruders activate their magical combat skills all at once. Glaring at the group from above, the Guardian notes that everyone has spells and the enemy's overall level has increased. Despite the clear numerical disadvantage, he stays perfectly focused and readies his energy without showing any signs of despair. Landing with extreme violence, the kid activates his earth-shattering power with a firm conviction of winning the fight. Focused on protecting his precious friends, the hero overflows with fierce and utterly relentless determination. Right then, he remembers that he stole this exact same devastating technique from the old giant who used to terrorize the little ones. Unleashing the destructive force into the ground, the young man decides to use the crushing attack in his favor to collapse the terrain. With the floor cracking apart, the hunters panic as they recognize the dead mercenary leader's signature move. Terrified by the earthquake he generated, the squad commander screams, demanding everyone to flee the blast zone. But their reaction is way too slow, and a colossal shockwave explodes, swallowing the armed warriors all at once. Thrown wildly through the air, one of the invaders terrifiedly concludes that the monster's level is incalculably absurd. Taking advantage of the thick dust, the Guardian floats magically while the opposing troop is trapped on the potholed ground. Standing tall on top of the rock formation, the boy demands with pure coldness that the intruders retreat back home immediately. Giving no room for negotiation, he makes a direct threat, guaranteeing that one more step will result in an immediate demise. Frightened by the lethal warning, the survivors run for their lives, ordering the immediate and urgent opening of the portal. During their pathetic group escape, the soldiers complain in frustration about returning empty-handed and losing their pay for the job. Despite the humiliating defeat by the boss, the team commander confidently assures them that the lack of money won't be a problem. Right behind the pack retreating to the portal, a strange mechanical fish silently tracks all the movement in the area. The MC picks up on the weird presence in the environment and activates his sharp vision to focus his eyes on the small object. Analyzing the metal parts, he quickly confirms that the machine has no life and serves only as a surveillance camera. Watching the humans escape through the rift, the young man understands that their real goal was never to clear out the ruins monsters. As soon as the glowing corridor completely closes, sealing off the exit, the spy drone drops inactive onto the rocks. Watching the dust settle in the destroyed landscape, the Guardian keeps wondering what exactly that squad came looking for. However, his train of thought is cut off when a glowing window pops up on the system screen right before his eyes. The bright panel displays a tactical battle report notifying him that dozens of the escapee spells have been perfectly copied. Shocked by the massive list of talents acquired all at once, the hero reflects that he has no clue what kind of trouble lies ahead. But he quickly puts his mind at ease, knowing that the immense variety in his arsenal guarantees great offensive options for the future. Breaking the tense mood of the place, the magical birds fly over and praise the quick end to the territorial conflict. Relaxing his muscles after the scare, the young man begins to freely levitate around while playing with his little allies. In the midst of that spontaneous fun in the air, he suddenly has an epiphany, remembering a very specific detail from the battle. Staring at the energy flowing through his own hands, the MC decides to test the usability of one of his new powers on the spot. Putting the plan into action, the young man activates the skill and starts gliding through the sky, acting as if he were swimming. Excited by the incredible novelty, the twins celebrate the leader's independent flight, as he confesses he learned the trick from the invader. But his total lack of practical experience takes a quick toll, and the boy suffers an embarrassing loss of balance while swimming. Unable to fix his body posture in time, he plummets screaming while his winged companions watch the fall in horror. Diving urgently, the birds cushion the clumsy friend's impact, asking worriedly if there were any serious injuries. Letting out a trying, nervous laugh, the hero admits to the team that trying to master a stolen technique on the first try is a tough task. Trying again with doubled concentration, he notices that applying more thrust allows him to maintain a very smooth and consistent path. Now used to the fluidity of his new airborne transport, the Guardian asks his partners when it was that they discovered their own spells. Keeping a parallel route to him, the bird responds very calmly that using spells started as soon as they hatched from the egg. Amazed by such innate genius, the young man asks in surprise if all the creatures in the biome are born doing absurd things. The little companion calmly explains that certain weak species at the bottom of the food chain, like the wolf pups, never develop magic tricks. With his curiosity sparked about the biological rules of the world, the MC immediately wants to know if there are prodigy humans right from the cradle. Assuming a serious posture in midair, the winged creature clarifies bluntly that vital talents belong exclusively to the monster class. The informant also adds that common people have no control over mana whatsoever and rely entirely on equipment to fight. Putting the pieces of that profound revelation together, Imamura finally grasps that destroying a hunter's sword neutralizes any immediate danger. Explaining about the crafted tools, the winged bird details that they are made by using monsters with skills as processing material. Caught off guard by the brutal revelation, Imamura lets out an exclamation of disbelief. At that moment he realizes in shock that all the hunter weapons he destroyed so far used to be monsters before being forged. The shock grows as the hero terrifyingly wonders if he has spent all this time destroying other dungeon creatures. Seeing the leader's despair, the winged bird tries to calm him down, stating that he is way too kind and doesn't need to make that face. The little ally continues explaining that the subjugation rings placed on the monsters are essential for turning them into magical items. That cruel method doesn't just serve to force obedience, but it is also the way to drag the creatures into the human world. The bird concludes that the magical tools are monsters that never made it back home, forced to serve for eternity even after their end. To comfort the young man, the partner says he believes that breaking a magical item actually frees the creature's trapped soul. Relieved by his friend's comforting perspective, the MC agrees, feeling a weight lift off his shoulders. Accepting the cruel reality of that place, the Guardian reflects that there must still be many unknown tragedies across the world. But, floating through the mausoleum sky, he swears to use all his strength to protect the monsters living under his care. Far away from there, a man lets out a mocking laugh upon learning that not even the mercenary squad could defeat the famous dungeon boss. Sitting near the window, the mysterious researcher notes with satisfaction that this failure gave him a great reason to visit the eastern capital. The lord of the city, Pedro de Tlas, complains irritably about the toady incompetence of the hired hunters. Even with the previous failure, the ruler flashes a greedy smile, claiming to be a very lucky man. He brags immensely about managing to get such an illustrious figure to personally accept his plea for help. The genius of the underground lab, Professor Lane Tulin, ignores the lord as he praises his spy drone for its excellent work. The small floating fish-shaped machine reacts joyfully to receiving its creator's praise. Satisfied with the results of the seeker recording, the scientist confirms that the captured footage came out in perfect quality. Observing the tool's advanced technology, Pedro confesses in awe that he had never seen such impressive equipment before. The lord is amazed by the moving projection accompanied by floating words, figuring it is yet another genius invention by the researcher. Cutting the ruler's excitement short, Tulin ends the display, declaring that the initial reconnaissance of the bizarre mausoleum is finished. Turning his back on those present, the professor raises his hand and excitedly states that the next step of the mission is quite obvious. Not understanding the investigative genius's intentions, the city leader nervously asks what this next stage would be. Wearing his long white coat, the scientist answers firmly that they will now conduct an in-person field investigation. With a sadistic look, he guarantees that he is going to study the scandalous dungeon from top to bottom before taking it out completely. Back to the piece of the forest mausoleum, the guardian plays in the air with the twin birds, completely carefree. However, the tranquility is suddenly interrupted by the system's glowing alert warning of a new invader detected. Caught off guard by the sudden notification, the group reacts in shock, realizing the imminent threat approaching the place. Landing quickly near the entrance, Imamura tensely wonders what the danger level of the hunters invading right now is. With a deep creak, the massive dark doors of the main structure begin to open, revealing the gloomy hallway. Hidden in the thick vegetation, the MC watches silently, waiting for the enemy troop to emerge. However, time passes and the entrance remains completely empty, with no sign of humans coming out through the passage. Confused by the lack of physical movement, the young man is intrigued to find that no one is stepping onto the mausoleum grounds. Suspecting a stealthy trap, he starts looking around until a voice echoes out of nowhere, asking if he is the leader there. Startled by the sudden approach, the hero frantically searches for the source of the sound, unable to find who is talking. At that moment, the air in front of him begins to magically distort, slowly revealing the silhouette of a man wearing a white coat. Deactivating his optical camouflage, Tulin appears floating smoothly and greets the monster with total calmness. The kid takes a step back, shocked by the invader's absurd ability to simply materialize out of thin air. As the scientist lands elegantly on the ground, the Guardian panics upon noticing that the system isn't displaying the enemy status window. Keeping a safe distance, the MC instantly realizes he has never faced a hunter with this level of power before. Without dropping his guard, the boy coldly questions the stranger's identity and his true goal there. Adjusting his glasses arrogantly, the researcher announces he came to clear the dungeon and demands to know the exact location of the treasure. Immediately, the leader remembers the system's golden box and deduces that humans will always come back to try to steal that specific prize. Grasping the logic of the human world, Imamura confirms to himself that the ultimate target of any invasion will always be the main reward. Walking toward the monster unhurriedly, Tulin reiterates that his goal is to achieve total completion by stealing the protected treasure. Not understanding the technical terms used by elite hunters, the young man repeats the phrase, trying to decipher its real meaning. Noticing the creature's ignorance, the genius flashes an ironic smile and begins to explain the basic rule of that magical universe. He coldly reveals that the exact moment a ruin has its valuable items stolen, it is erased entirely from existence. The explanation details that the golden box acts as the structure's vital core, keeping all the area's magic actively functioning. Once the prize falls into human hands, the place collapses and all the monsters tied to it are brutally eliminated without mercy. The researcher wraps up his morbid lesson by stating that the literal disappearance of everything is simply the natural law of how things operate there. Consumed by a protective fury, the hero explodes his blue energy, declaring he will never allow the destruction of his precious home. Faced with the predictable aggressive reaction, Tulin snaps his fingers, making dozens of glowing mechanical fish appear floating around him. With a simple wave of his left hand, the scientist sends the entire cybernetic troop to attack his opponent in a furious swarm. Surprised by the machine's speed, the Guardian rushes forward, trying to dodge the metal projectiles tearing through the air. Noticing the massive amount of enemy weaponry, the boy decides to use area attacks to clear the surroundings as fast as possible. Moving nimbly across the rocks, he launches a continuous barrage of curved blue energy blades that slice the targets into tiny pieces. Watching his equipment get destroyed, the scientist maintains a bored expression, admitting he already expected that counterattack. The metal scraps, sliced up by the energy blades, fall heavily, raising white smoke across the battlefield. However, the glowing pieces begin to float on their own and magically reconnect, rebuilding the mechanical fish in seconds. The dungeon leader's eyes go wide in amazement as he realizes his slashes deal no permanent damage to the enemy tools. Protected by the cybernetic wall forming around him, Tulin openly mocks the monster's inexperience against cutting-edge items. The MC panics, trying to come up with a strategy to hurt an opponent who is completely immune to physical and slashing blows. In this critical moment, a dark-furred monstrous creature opens its jaws, charging a dense sphere of light deep in its throat. A colossal beam of freezing energy is fired across the field, ripping through the ground toward the arrogant professor with extreme violence. The destructive blast barely misses the Guardian, who turns his head, startled by the absurd force of the attack that came from above. The smoke clears, revealing the scientist perfectly safe inside a defensive barrier, while the magic spreads like solid ice. Flying aggressively through the sky, the two-headed twin bird squawks, ordering the darn human to stay away from their boss. Recognizing the winged species right away, the investigator laughs in fascination and advises the beast not to try any dangerous tricks again. Immediately, one of the mechanical fish points upwards and fires a condensed beam of light straight into the small magical dragon's chest. Caught off guard by the lightning-fast counterattack, the bird takes the hit head-on and loses control of its wings, spinning out in midair. Despite the pain, the heroic creature quickly stabilizes its flight and growls, baring its fangs, showing unwavering fury for its home. Standing in the middle of the frozen arena, the human genius calmly watches the small defenders hovering over the area, ready for a real battle. Looking closely at the creature, Tulin notices that the subjugation ring is missing from its neck. Shocked by the discovery, the scientist wonders how the beast managed to break free from the spell. Floating calmly toward the ground, he deduces that these are the monsters that escaped the hunters recently, and wants to know how they took the collars off. But the magical birds ignore the questions and keep flying furiously, ready to attack the human. Noting the beast's hostility, the researcher sarcastically asks if they aren't in the mood to talk. At that moment, the invader is caught completely off guard by a presence behind his back. Using a stealth skill, Imamura charges at top speed, launching a direct attack through the enemy's blind spot. After dodging the blow, the genius impressively admits that the hero really pulls off some scary moves. Standing firmly beside his winged allies, the MC demands that the humans stay away from his friends. Calmly pushing up his glasses, Tulin concludes that they need to cool off and announces he is done for today. Activating his teleportation magic, the scientist vanishes into thin air as he casually says goodbye. Seeing the panel confirm 0 challengers, the Guardian feels relieved, realizing the opponent actually retreated. However, the system's silence leaves him confused about the lack of new techniques to absorb. The kid reacts in shock as he reads the red notification warning that there are no skills available to copy. Completely in disbelief at the error, he panics, not understanding why the rule of acquiring invader powers didn't work on that man. Reflecting on his own growth, the young man knows that absorbing new talents levels up the ruin and increases his capabilities. But being left completely in the dark regarding the attributes and abilities of that invader brings up a real concern about future dangers. The Guardian seriously acknowledges that this scientist is very different from any opponent he has ever faced. Shifting the scene to the eastern capital, Tulin announces he has changed his mind and will do something else before clearing the dungeon. Curious about the change of plans, Pedro de Talis immediately asks if some unforeseen event happened. The professor clarifies that this new decision is strictly motivated by his personal research. He details his desire to capture the twin dragon, since clearing the ruin would erase all the monsters along with it. Grasping the logic, the Lord rubs his hands together greedily and suggests that the genius capture the mausoleum boss as well. Following the researcher down the hall, the ruler insists that the creature would bring in a lot of money as rare material and promises to provide extra support. Sealing the business deal, Pedro guarantees that the lab will have access to an infinite supply of subjugation rings. Paying little attention to the man's promises, Tulin accepts the offer, demanding only that they don't get in the way of his work. Totally satisfied with the newly struck partnership, the city leader agrees on the spot. Watching the hunter leave, the Lord places blind faith in his abilities. After all, it was that exact scientist who hunted down the great dragon responsible for wiping out an entire guild in the past. Far from there, the mausoleum's hero rests peacefully beside the golden box with his loyal companions. Staring at the room's main prize, the young man recalls the lethal warning about the consequences of it being stolen. Manipulating a small light in his hand, he solidifies the idea that losing the item will cause the entire structure to collapse. With a serious look, the MC decides that it is impossible to let the human steal that core under any circumstances. That absolute protection would guarantee the survival of the peaceful ecosystem and everyone living there. Right then, the red window blinks in the boy's vision, warning that new challengers have entered the territory. Leaping quickly off the rock, the monster reacts to the alert, going on the offensive. Far away, the access portal opens, emitting a bright magical flash. The Guardian runs swiftly down the hallway, dodging bright blasts tearing through space. Floating freely with his machines, Tulin greets his opponent ironically upon seeing him again. Furious, Imamura accuses the human of trying to steal the treasure, knowing that it would cause the dungeon's total destruction. Heaving calm, the genius warns that today's goal is merely to capture a test subject for his scientific research. The hero is startled upon noticing a brutal change in the fish-shaped weapon. In a matter of seconds, the flying machine expands, creating a gigantic, menacing metal body. The huge drone dives violently, trying to crush the target against the floor. Cornered by the heavy charge, the MC realizes he is trapped by a force shield generated by the impact. Holding a glowing magical collar, the scientist ignores the trapped monster and asks where the twin dragons are hiding. Imamura's eyes widen as he recognizes the cruel subjugation ring in the invader's hand. Terrible memories flood the young man's mind as he remembers that these tools force absolute obedience through pain and suffering. Consumed by an instinctive fury, he gathers his blue energy, refusing to accept their reality. Activating the Windblade skill, the hero swears he will never let his friends go through that nightmare again. At the same time, in an isolated area far from the forest, a strange figure approaches in silence. Stepping onto solid ground, the mysterious ally mutters that everything is following the planned strategy perfectly. He recalls the genius plan where the professor draws all the leaders' attention while hunting the winged beasts. Meanwhile, the stealthy partner gets the secret mission of stealing the reward in the middle of the chaos. Confirming his part in the tactical invasion, the armed mercenary walks straight toward the objective unnoticed. In the protected hideout of the mausoleum, a small fluffy paw rests softly on the stone floor. Resting around the sacred chest, one of the gentle wolf pups perks up its ear upon noticing something is wrong. The little guardian tilts his head, picking up the sound of heavy footsteps breaking the peace of the place. The hunter's shadow emerges from the darkness, blocking the light that illuminated the cave entrance. Sensing the invader's menacing presence, the pup goes into absolute panic mode. Trembling with fear, the entire pack cowers against the wall, feeling the mortal danger emitted by the hunter. But, fighting his own instinctive fear, the little wolf closes his eyes trying to find some hidden courage. In his pure mind, Imamura's fierce promise regarding the unconditional protection of that treasure echoes strongly. Planting his small paws firmly on the uneven floor, the creature decides not to back down. Assuming a defensive stance, the fragile monster faces the giant enemy to protect the heart of his home. Back at the main fight, the sound of shattered glass cuts through the air as a magical object is destroyed. Moving at an absurd speed, the Guardian unleashes several precise attacks, destroying the items in the genius's hands. Intact among the floating collars, Tuin insists that he will need to immobilize his opponent first. But the boy counters by launching multiple gusts of wind that shatter all the exposed magical items. Determined, the hero declares that he will turn to dust every subjugation ring the human dares to show. The researcher ironically points out that this kind of destruction is impossible for beasts from that inferior ecosystem. Interrupting the flawed theory, the MC charges forward, revealing that he has already broken the shackles of the bird and the great dragon effortlessly. He adds that he couldn't stand seeing the suffering of those tortured souls by the human tool. For the first time during the entire invasion, Tulin drops his arrogant posture and reacts with genuine surprise to the information. Clenching his free hand in anger, the scientist emits a red magic, demanding to confirm if the boy really broke the rings. Analyzing the situation, the scientist realizes in shock that this boss is a monster capable of breaking subjugation rings, something never recorded in history. He then deduces that the real target he should have been after from the very beginning wasn't the dragon, but the leader of that dungeon. Advancing with quick strikes of blue energy, Imamura furiously asks how the invader has the nerve to use something so terrible. The Guardian explains that it is not a simple collar, but a cruel device that enslaves the body and heart of the monsters. Consumed by anger, the MC tries to hit the enemy at all costs. Dodging the attack with extreme ease, Chulin calmly admits that he is fully aware of the item's cruelty. Holding the remains of a broken ring, the researcher changes his expression to a more serious tone and accepts the challenge. Far from there, the small wolf raises his head, letting out a howl for help that echoes across the whole area. The desperate call reaches Imamura's ears, making the hero stop his offensive immediately. Recognizing the pup's voice, he gets startled as he realizes that something serious has happened deep in the forest. Taking advantage of the distraction, the human puts on a sadistic look and asks if the kid is going to go help his buddy. The MC hesitates for a brief moment, knowing that leaving the scientist loose is dangerous. But protecting his family is the absolute priority, making the boss sprint at top speed toward the source of the howl. Watching the escape, Tulin fascinatingly concludes that he has finally found the power to destroy the collars, now only needing to figure out how to capture it. Meanwhile, the fragile pup trembles with fear in the forest, letting out low whimpers facing an invisible threat. Cornered in the vegetation, the little guardian keeps backing away terrified and crying out for help. Staring down his prey, Roncillo mockingly praises the sharp sense of smell of such a weak creature. The level 61 mercenary decides to reward the little wolf's effort by using him as the first test subject for his new weapon. Pointing the weapon, the hunter sneers, saying the little monster should feel extremely honored by this fatal destiny. Before the strike hits the target, Imamura appears like lightning, blocking the spear shaft with his own arm. Feeling the weight of the impact, the hero notes with irritation that the invasion included one more challenger. Positioning himself protectively in front of the pup, the Rillin's boss orders the human to back off and takes the front line. The invader activates his skill with a manic tone, hyped up to have found the local leader and a fun opponent to take down. Immediately, the boy grabs the wolf and leaps high into the air, narrowly escaping a brutal charge that destroys the ground. Mid-air, magical sparks explode as the two warriors clash their forces violently. The MC trades quick blows with the mercenary, trying to find an opening in the enemy's defense. Analyzing the environment, he notices the disadvantage of being among the trees, a place that prevents him from using destructive area attacks. To make matters worse, the hero recognizes that the adversary is an experienced warrior, with incredibly sharp and heavy strikes. Keeping a safe distance, Imamura watches the intruder swing his purple blade with total confidence. At that point, a detail on the invader's weapon catches the Guardian's attention, leaving him completely shocked. Focusing his gaze on the tip of the enemy's equipment, the MC gets the strange feeling that he has seen that material before. A painful memory surfaces in his mind, revealing the severed horn of the great dragon he had recently saved. Putting the pieces together, the kid uncovers the repulsive truth that human magical tools are created by processing skilled monsters. The mausoleum leader is horrified to realize that living creatures are being used as mere manufacturing resources. Outraged, he asks directly if that purple spear was forged using the remains of the ancient dragon. The mercenary shows a wicked grin, figuring out on the spot that it was this young man who freed the giant beast. Showing off his shiny new acquisition, Roncillo brags, explaining that the weapon grows and becomes more lethal the more targets he hunts. With pure mockery, the hunter thanks the hero for providing such a wonderful piece of equipment. Consumed by a dark fury, Imamura silently mourns, knowing he didn't free the beast just so it could become a human weapon. While the monster suffers, the spearman bursts into hysterical laughter, celebrating the wealth, power, and pure thrill the item provides. Completely euphoric, the invader loudly declares that monster hunting is something that never gets old. Unable to bear hearing another word, the Guardian charges like a blue comet, delivering a frontal attack charged with hatred. The human's eyes widen, dropping his arrogant pose, caught completely off guard by the sudden burst of speed. The devastating force of the impact hits Roncillo head-on, breaking his defense and leaving him clueless about what just hit him. Clenching his fist with extreme force, the MC remembers that the fallen dragon's only wish was to save its companions. Recalling his allies' comforting words, the boy swears to protect the ancient beast's energy so it isn't used in further massacres. Taken over by a relentless blue aura, he passes his sentence, stating he will completely destroy that defiled spear. With swift movements, Imamura launches an aggressive sequence of strikes, forcing the spearman to retreat desperately so he isn't eliminated. Sweating cold with tension, Roncillo groans in pain, impressed by his opponent's absurd strength even without the use of special skills. Despair begins to take over the mercenary, who realizes he is losing badly to a creature he deemed inferior. A new devastating attack from the hero breaks the human's defensive stance, leaving him dangerously vulnerable. In absolute shock, the hunter refuses to accept the harsh reality of failing to clear out a measly low-rank ruin. Yelling that this is completely impossible, the invader turns his back on the fight and begins a cowardly escape through the forest. Irritated by the pathetic attitude, the mausoleum leader demands the coward to stop and shoots into the air to chase him down. Using the trees as an escape route, Ron Solo quickly dives toward the dark ground of the scenery. During the enemy's path, the MC suspiciously wonders what could be so important in that specific direction. Landing softly on the dirt floor, the spearman celebrates maliciously, announcing he found exactly what he was looking for. Left defenseless just a few meters away, the little wolf pup becomes the new target of the human's destructive ambition. Prepping the magical weapon for the takedown, the mercenary calculates that hunting all the weak monsters will empower the spear enough to guarantee his victory. Faced with the adversary's deadly intent, Imamura falls into total panic and desperately screams for the pup to run away from there. With nowhere to run, the small creature lets out a high-pitched cry of terror, seeing its demise approaching swiftly. However, in a sudden move, Tulin floats down and lands gracefully as a barrier between the pup and the spearman. The unexpected intervention leaves both the mercenary and the MC completely paralyzed in surprise. Stopping the charge midway, Ron Solo finally recognizes the identity of the other invader who entered the area. But greed speaks louder, and the spearman attacks his colleague, telling him to feel honored to serve as a sacrifice to strengthen his weapon. Before the blade hits the scientist, one of the cybernetic fish appears in the blink of an eye and deflects the heavy strike with extreme ease. Intact after the deadly charge, the genius maintains his relaxed posture while his metal drones orbit around him. Landing right behind him, Imamura is totally confused, trying to understand why that dangerous human saved the fragile little wolf. Annoyed by the block, Ron Solo furiously asks why the researcher is meddling in his personal hunt. With a professorial tone, Tulin deduces his ally's obvious plan to massacre the lesser monsters just to gain enough power against the boss. Without an ounce of remorse, the man crushes his colleague's hopes, stating that this tactic is useless there and that he is nothing but dead weight. With a cynical stance, the researcher threateningly suggests that the warrior turn around and leave immediately. The insult strikes the mercenary's ego hard, and he reacts indignantly, asking if he is being called inferior to those wild monsters. Sighing in boredom, the scientist laments the fact that such a proud man would never accept leaving peacefully after hearing the truth. Finally, he decrees that he will use Ron Solo's weakness to his advantage, turning the useless spearman into a simple test subject for his research. Holding the pup protectively, Imamura glares at the scientist, who internally decides to abandon clearing the place to focus solely on capturing the boss for research. Outraged by the humiliation, the mercenary demands his ally to take back what he said, but receives a direct refusal and a threat to settle the situation with violence. Consumed by fury, Ron Solo raises his spear wrapped in purple magic and charges, declaring he will turn even his own colleague into food for his weapon. With the lethal attack fired at the researcher, the MC watches the clash from afar as energy explodes on the battlefield. Watching the commotion, the hero has no idea what is going on as he hears the genius ironically comment that the two invaders ended up fighting each other. At that moment, Tulin calmly turns his attention back to the mausoleum leader and makes an unusual proposal suggesting an immediate alliance. The absurd offer leaves the spearman amazed and the guardian in shock, letting out an exclamation that reveals his pure disbelief at the request.